Good vibes, good vibes. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Seth Moore coming to you here again on Anchor by Spotify. Always listening to uncopyrighted music for your enjoyment pleasure. It is currently now 54 and sunny outside with a still calm breeze. We hope you had a great day, that you encountered your brethren and sisters when you went to the house of your belief. Today we're going to be following up on some things and giving you some new things as well. Now, as you guys probably remember, that I did a podcast talking about Project Bluebeam. This is a government conspiracy to falsify and to fake an alien invasion, so that, and we're going to just briefly go into some of that, and we're going to move on because we've already did a podcast on that. And of course, with there being any other relevant information as to, adding layers onto that, I'll do that. I'll do that so that you'll have the information. But we want to move on to some other stuff because, of course, as we promised you guys, we would continue to bring you and to finalize different other series that we've been talking about, because as you already know, there are so many things to actually I can do a podcast on and discuss. It's just unreal, because there are things that are unfolding before us every single hour, every single moment. So there is not a lack of information. As we all know, the book said that in the last days, knowledge would increase. So we are seeing knowledge increasing in the universe, and it's actually positioning us spiritually to be postured and to be ready. And of course, for some, that looks different than it does for others, and we just want you guys to be steadfast. We want you to be diligent. We want you to keep your eyes on your higher consciousness, on your higher self, and always be conscious of self, the third eye. And as I always mention, and I've said before, you are not the mind. You become the watcher of your thoughts, so that you won't be entangled in any unnecessary mishaps, and that you would be someone who can elucidate and share current events and knowledge as you receive it, whether you're receiving it, on your own and you're doing your own research, or whether you're receiving it from someone else through whatever medium, such as what I'm doing here, giving you information through this podcast. So we want you to stay relevant, and we want you guys to, of course, stay on your mark, because as we know, things are rapidly moving faster and faster. Even as you turn your head, something has changed, but as they say, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So of course we want you to be abreast of this and to be current. We want you to be current. Okay, so we're going to give you some information, and we're going to pause for a moment. We're going to come right back, and we're going to, of course, go on. So give us a moment, and we will be right with you. Okay, we are here and we are back with you. Again, this is Seth Moore coming to you here on Anchor by Spotify. Remember to like and to share and subscribe. And of course, you can find us on other host sites such as Patreon, Amazon, of course, Apple Music, Buzzsprout, as well as Podbean and many, many more. So again, today, we're going to be sharing with you this information. And what we'll probably do, I will read you, I'll give you a little bit of this, and more than likely what we're going to do, we're going to go right into another podcast so I can share some other things with you, or I'll probably follow up on some other areas that I didn't actually finish, and we'll move to that segment, and I'll go there and we'll give you some more information, because we were talking about the hair and activation and DNA and so forth. But of course, we covered a lot of that, and not that there's not more to share, but like I said, there's so much to give you. I don't want to spend a podcast, I don't want to spend, let me put it this way, I do, but I don't want to continue on one subject that's going to take up a great amount of time in terms of, doing, say, for instance, 5 or 6, 7 podcasts on one subject over time, because I can do that, obviously. But I like to, and what I do, sometimes I'll give you back-to-backs that way, so you can have, sort of like a synopsis, kind of like a short book story of the events and the subject matter, and that way you'll get the gist of what is actually going on and happening. So that's what we'll do. So I'm going to read you some things here, and we're going to move on. So let's dive right in. Okay. It says on April 27th, 2020, the U.S. Department of Defense issued a public statement authorizing the release of 3 UFO videos taken by the U.S. Navy pilots. The footage appears to depict airborne, heat-emitting objects with no visible wings, fuselage, or exhaust, performing aerodynamically in ways that no known aircraft can achieve. The DOD doesn't use the terms, and you know what DOD, of course, stands for Department of Defense, doesn't use the terms unidentified flying objects. They no longer use those terms, y'all. Okay, or UFOs. They came up with another usage or acronym to describe what people are seeing in the atmosphere, but does clearly state the aerial phenomenon observed in the videos remain characterized as unidentified. Thoughts about what UFOs are vary widely, from illusions to alien spacecraft. However, a workable conservative definition is intelligently controlled airborne objects not apparently made by humans. So I guess that's another term that they're using, ICA. Okay, only a small fraction of UFO reports collected globally over the past 7 decades seems to describe such objects, but the Navy footage appears to fit the bill, whether such objects are vehicles of alien invasions or not. Their mere presence would seem to indicate a national security threat, which is partly what makes the Pentagon's recent announcement so puzzling. So now, let me just stop there for a moment and share something. So now, with the Project Blue Beam episode and podcast that was done, and what was explained was that they're trying to create this bogus fake alien invasion, and that alien invasion is to basically dismantle all religious sects, whether it be Hindu, whether it be Muslim, whether it be Christianity, whether it be whatever, Jehovah's Witness. And so with that being done, the plan is to get people, as always, to trust the government, because with this fake alien invasion, you're going to have the protection of the military complex, okay? And once they so-called ward off or fight off these aliens, because these are going to be illusions. As I told you, they have this machine where they can create holograms where they'll shoot different things in the atmosphere where it's believable. And now they even have it where the technology is really crazy. They have it now where they have physical beings where you could actually touch and hear the sound. They were doing this experiment at this, I think it was like at some kind of theme park where the kids were there, and they were having seals come out of the water where the kids could touch it, but it's still not real. They had a polar bear, and I mean, come on. You can't touch no damn polar bear. It will take your head off. You can't touch no polar bear. So they have these fictitious illusions and holograms set up densely where now they are creating human and animal form solids where you can actually reach out and touch it and you can hear the sound. And they're emanating the sound of these creatures where it replicates their animal voices. And I'm like, wow, this is really something. So don't go for the okie doke. Now, I will say this. I believe that a lot of what has been seen in the atmosphere is real. I believe it's real. See, but what we have to be careful of is to know what is real and what is not real. See, because they're going to use this technology that they have to throw you a head fake, okay? And to make something appear real that's not real and actually before time's happen. And my belief is that there may be even intervention on the parts of our star galactic ancestors who will come in and intervene and dismantle this whole hoax, okay? Because there are other entities in the universe that are with us, but they, like everything else, want to manipulate, want to create this illusion, which we already are in, with these fake appearances. So let me move on. It says only a small fraction of the UFO reports collected globally over the past 7 decades seems to describe such objects, which I had just read. But the Navy footage appears to fit the bill, whether such objects are vehicles of alien invasions or not. Their mere presence would seem to indicate a national security threat, which is partly what makes the Pentagon's recent announcement so puzzling. Okay, it goes on to say that this is the first time the Pentagon has publicly confirmed the authenticity of UFO footage. It should have been a momentous announcement. Okay, but it seems to have barely moved the needle on the UFO controversy. Why? See, because they have a plan to manipulate it. Now, mind you, the government has been doing things around the globe for centuries and for decades. And obviously it would make you think that they've been, since 1951, when they had, of course, the Area 51 scenario, and how that they found this craft and there were some aliens on this craft who were dead, and then they faked showing the aircraft that they actually found because, of course, they didn't want other countries to see what it was, and technology and all that stuff. And this was how stealth was created, by getting this technology, so forth and so on, right? But again, they want to manipulate this, and they want to have control over this whole phenomenon. Okay, they want to have complete control over it. And I'm going back, decades ago, when people were seeing these, at the time, unidentified flying objects all over the world. And then, of course, with this being so prevalent around the globe and people seeing these things, the government obviously had to do something about it. They said, oh, man, we hearing this too much. People notice that there are things out there. Now, again, of course, they're going to manipulate it. They're going to make it work in their favor, because the way the world is going, they have to bring the global populace under a new world order. This is what this is all about, y'all. Through creating this fake invasion to get the people, and they're going to use fear. I say this again. Remember, just like they did with COVID. Okay, and you guys have to understand. You have to understand with what they did with COVID, how they made all y'all afraid. Okay, and how y'all went and got the jab. Some of y'all 2 and 3 times. That's what they're going to do. They're going to use fear. That is the key. They're going to throw it all over the media. They're going to use fear, and they're going to get into your psyche. They want to get into your space. They want to get into your spiritual space. Okay? This is what I'm telling you. That's why I push. I say, you are not the mind. Divorce yourself from that mind. See, because when you have this world's mind, you're going to be led. You're going to be led by the information that this world is putting out. You're going to be what they call now predictive programming. They know how you're going to react. And this is why you have to relinquish yourself from that thought process that you've had for so long, allowing the mind to control you. Okay? You have to relinquish yourself from that. That you are not the mind. You are in your body. Okay? You only have a reaction when the mind is triggered and it's telling you something that you need to do. But you need to go on your intuition. Again, you need to look through that lens of your higher consciousness. And like I told you, everything happens in consciousness. Everything is moving all the time. Everything is vibration. Everything is rhythm. Everything is moving. This is the way the universe works. It works off of vibration and frequencies and constant current movement. And they know this. And they're trying to get you to move in their matrix flow, so they can control you. Okay, listen. The announcement is new, but the videos are not. The 3 grainy monochrome infrared videos, one taken in November 2004, the other 2 in January 2015, had already been leaked online in 2007 and 2013, respectively. They also gained international attention after the New York Times published them as part of a December 2017 expose on the Pentagon's secret UFO research program, the so-called Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. That's what it's called, AAA, through Threat Identification Program. Now, the other thing, too, that probably was mentioned before in the other podcast that I want to, kind of reiterate, is that they're going to be creating fake earthquakes, all of these things, So you have to look at when you see something on the news, whether or not it's staged or whether or not it's real. Because you know how Hollywood, you already know, the Untouchables. Hollywood, when we go to the movies and we see all of these props and these stage setups where we're looking at a movie and things blowing up and how they make it look so real, and you sitting up there and you're like, wow, you in awe, because they are professionals. They know how to make this stuff look real. So you have to really be sharp and cognizant of when you're looking at something, even on the news. Before you begin to digest it mentally, spiritually, and so forth, and you take it all in, you have to look at it and see if it's real. Because they know how to stage a lot of this stuff. They're so good at it. They'll make a believer out of you. That program was allegedly headed by Luis Elizondo, who claims to have been instrumental in the 2017 leaks. Now, this Luis Elizondo, this guy, he was one of the guys that worked for CIA, okay? And they gave him a budget of like $22 million to do the research on this UFO phenomenon. And he was the one that came out with a lot of different information on what's actually happening now. So I don't know if he was playing both sides or if he's like a ploy to get people to believe what's getting ready to happen, or not. Okay, so his background, although he said his background has been credibly called into question after resigning from the DOD, Elizondo immediately joined to the Star Academy of Arts and Sciences, a UFO research collective founded by former Blink-182 frontman Tom DeLonge. Okay, and in September 2019, Joseph Gradisher, claiming the title of spokesman for the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for Information Warfare, confirmed the authenticity of all three videos in an email to a well-known UFO blog called The Black Vault. This development quickly reported by Washington Post. Okay. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna stop there for one moment and I'm gonna stop there, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to read you something else really quick, and then we're gonna move on. See, and they're prepping now because they say they're actually shooting for this fake invasion. They're actually shooting for 2024, which is just next year. And that'll be in 6 months, because a year is not 12 months anymore. So if you're keeping up with the way the universe is moving, you spiritually, you're already in tune. You already know what's happening. A year is not 12 months, because we're in the wrong time anyway. So a lot of us who are following this time and the laws that man has set up, we're off time, because as I said in the last video or video before that we're in 2023. In Ethiopia, it's 2015. Okay? So who's right and who's wrong? We're wrong. We're not in the right orbit of the universe. They have everything off. This is the wickedness of man. Okay, so we're not in the right orbit of, and this is why we have to be, again, as I often mention, in the right flow spiritually of the universe, the right flow in our Ethereal bodies, excuse me. That's why we have to be in the right flow, in the right frame of cognition, in the right frame of our movement, you know? Okay, so there's so much on this. There's actually so much that I can actually go on forever. But this is why I said that I would, give you as much as I could, and I would move from there, because, like I said, there's so much information to digest that you can go on forever. But as I was saying, how these people, man, it's like they don't ever get enough, y'all. They just like they just have to create something that's, see, because see, mind you too, see this, you have to think about this too. They know how this will affect psych too, but they know how this will affect the psyche of people. Don't you know that some people, they're going to believe that it's the end of the world and this is the whole purpose, that they'll get rid of a lot of people. A lot of people will actually, unfortunately, commit suicide, when they see this stuff, and they begin to believe that the world is coming to an end. They will just lose it. Some people will actually lose it. They will lose it, and they would run. They would go and I said that they are so good at what they do, that they'll make something come and reach out and touch you, and you'll believe it's real, and it'll be hologram, and then you have to pay attention to how that when you see these creatures, how that one telltale sign is that if you see a creature repeating the same motion, you follow what I'm saying? They turn their head a certain way and they look at you a certain way, and then they do the same thing all over again, and then do it all. It's a hologram. It's the density and the fact that you could reach out and touch something, but the reaction is, if it's creating a replication of the same movement, then it's not real. Because that's not the way humans react, or animals even react. You follow me? Yeah, that's not the way they even react. So here, okay. Because it says here, and I read this before. It says how these kids or people in general, not just children, adults as well, how you can go to this arena and they can create these illusions right above your head, and you see seals flying above your head, and it'll look like they're in water, and you're so amazed because it looks so real. And they'll even come down where they perfected it, where, like I was telling you with the children at this aquarium, and at this kind of like theme park, where the children were actually able to touch it. and the animals made the sounds and so forth. And I'm like, so that's what's coming, y'all. So we want to be ready. And I wanted to let's see. I wanted to give you a bit more of what was happening with this. And they call this the deep state, agents to stage alien invasion in the world, see, to dominate, to control. And I'm telling you, this apparatus that they have is going to be able to do this. Okay? And it says, according to the shocking claims, the U.S. will work with government agencies and the media, listen to this, and the media to create widespread panic among the public. UFOologists traced the stunning theory to an article written last year which revealed the existence of a $15.8 million Pentagon program that investigates alien phenomena. Around the same time, Buffin stunned the world with an announcement that a cigar-shaped asteroid had entered our solar system. It was the first time an interstellar object had been found so close to Earth. Okay, and as was just read. But the retired physician, Stephen Greer, claimed the announcement could have been a deliberate attempt to believed in a threat from space. He said, strictly speaking, the militarists and warmongers itching to kick some alien butt, as it was said in the movie Independence Day, may actually only want a pretext to justify their existence and get the world to eventually spend huge sums of money on a perceived, if contrived, threat from space. Return of King's conspiracy theorists added, as utterly insane as it sounds, it seems possible, but the U.S. government is preparing to try to convince the world that there is an alien invasion about to happen in the largest false flag since 9/11. Okay, so they're behind this. It's our government that's behind it, y'all, and we have to be, as I said, we have to be sharp. We have to know what's going on so that we don't drink the Kool-Aid. Sharp, sharp, sharp. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to pause, and we're going to move on into the next episode, which I had a promise that I would do. And we're gonna visit this. We're gonna come back to this and visit this as the information warrants, and we're gonna come and give you some more. But we're gonna pause for a moment, and we're gonna be back. Stay with us. This is Seth Moore coming to you again here on Anchor by Spotify. We will be right back. Stay with us. Good vibes, good vibes, good vibes. Okay, and we are back from the last podcast, and we're going to continue here on Anchor by Spotify. This is Seth Moore coming to you again, and we were just with you a moment ago, and we said we would be back, and we are back. And so we're going to continue, and we're going to pick up where we left off about a week ago when we were doing a series on all the gods with woolly black hair, okay? And all the gods were black with woolly hair. Okay, so we covered that, and also we covered African popes contributed to Christianity. We covered that. And we also covered, we also covered the Grimaldi Negroes. Okay, so now you know the Grimaldis were people of 40,000 years ago. And this African group, they were the ones to inhabit and discover the continent of Europe some 40,000 years ago. We have, of course, proven documentation and artifacts, so forth and so on. And they've inhabited Italy, Spain, France, Switzerland, Illyria, Bulgaria, Southern Europe. They was Brittany, the whole England, Wales, Scotland. We were all there. We discovered all these places. Okay, and so we covered that, and yeah, they were the first ones, as I mentioned, who settled Spain and lived there for thousands of years prior to the 1492 conquest of Grenada by the rebellious armies of Ferdinand and Aragon, of Isabel and the Castile. Okay, so we covered that. And we also covered Black Hercules, African concepts. We covered that. Okay, we talked about how Heru and how all these Greeks, the Caucasian Greeks, of course, when they came in, how they emulated all the concepts of Horus, Heru, and Hercules, and all these derivatives are African derivatives and African origins. So we cover that, and of course, we've had even Greek scholars to attest to it and affirm it, such as Herodotus. Okay, he affirmed it in his writings about Hercules was an Egyptian, and from the time immemorial, from the first century BC, and how another Greek, Diodorus, wrote in regards to this. So we covered that. Okay. And we also covered the American Superman, African concepts about superheroes. We also covered that. Okay, we covered that. And this is why I say to you guys, and I have been saying for some time, about the power that you have. And how that the African culture has been so appropriated and copied, but at the same time, how it's been so pejorative when it comes to how people have treated it. They want to emulate it, but then they want to knock it at the same time. It's kind of like a love-hate kind of thing. And so we covered this, And this is where you have global hegemony in terms of how that these structures are set up, and they want to keep this global hegemony in place. When it comes to the African, when it comes to the indigenous peopling of the globe. And we talked about how these superheroes were emulated and how they were replicated by the non-African people. Okay, and it shows, and they have given proof of, the Egyptian gods and so forth and so on. And we covered that. Okay, and even has gone as far as to replicate the art of Africa, how that, I just found out, I'm gonna do a podcast on that, how that Gucci, listen to this, y'all, you may not know about this, I'm gonna do a podcast on how Gucci, Prada, Louis Vuitton, they've taken their designs from Africa. And even they've gone to the Maasai tribe with, if you really look at the European runway model shows, you'll see them wearing Maasai replicated shawls. They went to the Maasai and they copied all of these designs. See, what I want you to understand is that these people can't do nothing without us, because we are the creators. We are the originators of all of this. And it just proves, and I don't hate white people. I just hate what they do. You know what I mean? I don't hate them. I really don't hate them. I don't hate them. I hate their arrogance. I hate their hypocrisy. Like I hate any black person's hypocrisy, and I hate any black person's arrogance just as much, because we should know better. But anyways, what I'm saying is we've created all these arts and designs because, as we all know, when the Moors came into Spain, they brought in the Egyptian cottons and the silks and the sashes and the turbans and, you name it. They brought it to Spain. They brought it to Europe. So fashion, all of this started with us. You didn't teach us how to dress. When you look at us, you're looking at the originators of everything. The arts, the sciences, the dress, the culinary, the mathematics, the astronomy, the seafaring men and women, and, even when you come down to war and strategic battle plans, the whole gamut. And I don't say that to be arrogant. I don't say that to be pejorative to any other group. It's just facts. That's all it is. It's just historical, global, world facts. And like I said, there has been global hegemony to suppress and to subdue and to subjugate all of these creative creations. So we covered that. And so I wanted to mention that, and I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to do a podcast on how Gucci, Louis Vuitton, they copied all their designs from Africa. And I'll show you, they have pictures. I'll show you. And they even went to the Maasai tribe. And so when they're doing these runway shows in Europe, you'll see a lot of the patterns, and you'll see the plagiarizing, and this is something that has been done throughout millennia. So we'll cover that as well. And so the origin of the white race, we covered that, and we talked about the albino. We talked about how the black woman has the genes, the Eve seed, where they can produce black and white babies. And we talked about how that leprosy is a deficiency, and we talked about that. And the word albino comes from the Latin root albus, meaning white, but it can also mean blank, as in devoid of color or features. The word was coined around 1660 to mean white Negro, but Balthazar Tellus, a historian missionary, in order to describe the tribal members he saw along the West African coast when we talked about it. In other words, included in the Greek, Leokostrope, the Greek word for white. And they talked about the Leko Ethiopians, meaning white Ethiopians. The albinos were also called moon children because they had to avoid being exposed to excessive direct sunlight. Okay, and we know what that is for the non-melanated person. Okay, and they only usually came out at night. Okay, and they talked about the use of the word dundis, meaning ghost or spirit. Okay, and of course they were walking around, and so when the people actually seen people like this, they were like, they were in shock because all the other people on the planet were melanated people. And so we talked about that, and let us go on. And so we talked about, we also talked about, yes, I think we talked about this as well. We discussed this, the cave dwellers. Okay, we talked about fleeing the wilderness in the former times, and how that, who cut up mallows by the bushes and juniper roots for their meat, and they were driven forth from among men, and they cried after them as after a thief. And this talks about this in Job 30:3. You can read that. And also you could look at 30:6. It says to dwell in the cliffs of the valleys and caves of the earth. And in the, in the Quran, they talk about it differently, but it's pretty much the same. So we discussed that as well. And you can find that in Obadiah 1:1 for you guys who are Bible people and you like to read your Bible. And so we talked about that. I believe we talked about Edom. And it talks about, we have heard a rumor from the Lord, and as an ambassador it is sent among the heathen, arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. And even it talks about it in Micah 2:1. You could read that as well. So again, and like I said before, you want to have right understanding, you want to have right interpretation when you're comparing these things, because you don't want to be looking at things one way and miss what you're supposed to receive. Okay, and Micah says, it talks about woes to those who devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds, and I spoke about that, and it talks about, okay, my computer's starting to act a little crazy. And we started out with, no, we didn't start out with that, but chapter when we talked about what it meant to be black. Okay, and we talked about the deformation of the African people. We talked about that. Okay. And we talked about black inferiority and white supremacy. We talked about the degrading stuff that did, and how the different caricatures and TV shows and how that they viewed us, and and the African story rewritten. We talked about that, and how they rewrote our history and made us, you know how it goes. Yeah, we talked about that as well. And let's skip along right here. And Greek philosophers learned from the Negro. Yep, that's true. Some of them didn't even go to Kemet to study, but they claimed they did. And this is why I mentioned before as well. They don't want to teach CRT in schools because they would have to write the whole history and the comfortability, African beliefs and religions. We talked about that, but as I was saying, they would have to teach a whole new curriculum, and they don't want to fragilize the little white children to tell them who their people really are, and telling them that they really didn't do a whole lot, in terms of developing societies and cultures and high societies, and it was the black man that did it, black man and black woman. So they don't want to tell these children that, because it would devastate them. That all the kings and queens of the earth were black men and black women, and that white people came in and they whitewashed and plagiarized and stole and killed and murdered. They don't want to tell these kids that, and so they're not giving over to the truth. And of course, we talked about the black pharaohs and pyramids, architects, and how that first structures on the planet were created and built by black men and women. Okay, so, and my computer actually took me back so I can give you that. I guess that was purposely. And it talks about how Africans dominated the world, which in fact we did. Okay, let's see what we have here. False teachings aided by the slave masters. Okay. I don't know if we talked about that, did we? I don't know if we talked about that. I don't remember. So what we'll do, we're going to start there. We'll start there. Yeah, we'll start there. And it says, it should now be very clear that much of what people are still being taught about black people was written in collusion with the slave merchants who had European world domination in mind. It can now be seen how racism corrupts and distorts everything along its path. Okay, and so true, because it is it's a malignant. It is what we call I'm trying to think of the word. It'll come back to me. But it's a cancer, and that's basically what I'm trying to say. So it is, and it has what we're reading here. It corrupts and it distorts everything along its path. Black parents should further see the need to question everything that Western education proclaims to be the truth, because as has been revealed, many things that were created by black Africans have been given a white face. You see what I'm saying? And so they don't want the world to know that we created these civilizations all around the globe. They give it a different name. They cut up maps, and they do this and turn maps upside down so that you won't know. They try to make Europe bigger than Africa. You could do that too. But at the same time, we inhabited Europe. We established Europe. Africans did. And then when, of course, they came out of the mountains and the caves, they came down, on a warpath, bloodletting. When we went up there to let them out, and try to civilize them, you know, they was on the warpath, man. They were mad because, of course, they were cold, hungry, starving, you know, and they had no semblance. They didn't have no semblance of civilized societies. They didn't have any semblance of faculties, right thinking. Right thinking. They were still in a brute beast of a mentality because that's what they were accustomed to, unfortunately. They were accustomed to a brute beast of living. And you crawling around on all fours and dragging women by their hair, beating them upside the head with clubs, and dragging dead bodies in the cave and letting it stay in the cave with you and rot, and you know, and while it just was heinous, terrible stuff. And unfortunately, when you're uncivilized, these are the ways that you act. So you couldn't help yourself, basically. And I don't say that again to be pejorative, but I say it because it's the truth. In the attempt to display more of a family portrait, here is a picture, Imhotep II left in there. Okay, so in other words, plagiarizing the grandfather of King Tut and Pharaoh Akhenaten. And on the right, it shows that they're clearly black. So they tried to whitewash the stone structure to make it look as though it was a European. And they just really need to stop that. You need to quit, really. You need to stop. Give up the gig. It's done, man. It's been proven. You need to stop because you're still trying to claim something that's not yours. And it just goes to show you that this has been done down through millennia. It's been done forever, you know. And it gets old and it's monotonous. You know, it gets monotonous that, you know, I even become a little perturbed when I see black people still doing videos trying to prove that the Kemites were black. And of course, you know, there's a reason for it. I know there's a reason for it, but I get bothered by that now because I'm saying to myself, you shouldn't do podcasts or things now trying to still prove that the Kemites were black people. They know that and the world knows it. You know, and you're still trying to prove to people that these people were indigenous or these people were people of the sun. There have been scholars, when they did the UNESCO conference, it was proven by one of the greatest scholars in the world, Sheikh Anta Diop, okay, and Obinga. They proved to these Europeans, they had a panel, they obliterated them because they weren't even prepared because they didn't have the proof. They did not have documented proof. They came up with all of these theorems and theories about how that other people came in and that, you know, that the Kemites ruled in the north or the south or something like that. They ruled over this particular region, but this other region of Kemet was a Eurasian region where no, quit all that. Please, quit all that noise. So, again, I said I become a little perturbed when I still see black people still trying to prove that the Kemites were black people, you know, and that's just my feeling. Maybe I shouldn't, but I do feel that way. Okay, so now it says here, okay, it talks about how Akhenaten's father was the same, which would make King Tut and Akhenaten brother. There is a red granite lion in the British Museum on which King Tut said, "My father was Imhotep III." As usual, the Greeks transposed his name to Amenophis. So the Greeks are always changing the names of stuff. That's just like they name Kemet Egypt. Egypt is a Greek name because it's the land of the blacks. When Diodorus and Herodotus, when they came to Kemet and they seen the high culture and the structures and the pyramids, they were in awe. They could not believe. They just was like floored. They were floored. Okay, so, and it talks about Amenhotep's wife, the third, Queen Tai, and it is not known if she were Tut's mother, but she was Akhenaten's mother, so King Tut and Akhenaten would be half brothers at least. And of course, you look at Queen T, she looked like somebody, a sister you know. And it talks about both the native Africans, and also note the man and woman are portrayed as equals. And she's sitting beside him with her hand around his waist. And this is what so this is why, and it is this playful move that the carving comes to life. So this is why black women need to get in line, because you're co-regents with the king. The queen is co-regents. You have as much power. So women on this trip that they're on, I don't get it. Come back to your higher self. Again, it emphasizes the point that there was great equality of the sexes in the ancient Kemetic world, where women and men held equally prominent roles. And so when you look at this, you can see it was a very beautiful black woman, the mother of Pharaoh Akhenaten, and probably also the mother of King Tut. Just awesome. And it talks about in this wall mirror carving on the, is another image of Queen T, but to observe the destruction of the face of the black African queen because of the hatred against the reality that a black African civilization was responsible for bringing light to the entire world. Do you hear me? And so they went about, when they went to certain areas, they began to destroy a lot of the monuments, such as when Napoleon went to Kemet and he had his officers to shoot off the noses of this, what they call the Sphinx. And that's not the proper word for it. But this is what they did. And it talks about the several images of Akhenaten, and a picture from San Francisco's Chronicles there was indicating the writer was concerned about Akhenaten's physical appearance, just suggesting his swollen lips and puckered lips and a fleshly nose, because they talked about how he had, his form was kind of different because he had hips like a woman, you know. And unfortunately, and I don't know if I say unfortunately or not, but I've seen some men built like that. And that's kind of like a little strange to me, but, you know, and I'm sure some of you have, you know, but so, you know, it's one of those things where, of course, they talked about his connection to alien life, and there's no doubt that our people come from the stars as well. So that's not surprising. That's not surprising at all. It's just that we have to really hone in on our spirituality, and know where we fit, and we fit in the whole universe. So if these features represented some form of illness, then there are lots of black people who even today are suffering from that same illness. Because as I said, there are people that are like that. And then it talks about Nefertiti. And it says a famous picture of Akhenaten's wife, which is known all over the world during the 18th dynastic period, the pharaohs especially. Thutmose went to Asia and Syria and married the daughters of kings as a political move and as a way of solidifying the empire. Many Asian women were also brought in and were married to the ruling pharaohs in Egypt. So this particular picture of Nefertiti, which is displayed in the Berlin Museum, may seem less Africoid, but that is because she was a foreigner. And so they talk about how that they're trying to still make Nefertiti a European, and they're still trying to make, Cleopatra. They're trying to make her a European. However, there is one detail that should be noted about this head. It was found in an artist's workshop on the floor without Nefertiti's name on it. So the assumption was that it must have been Nefertiti because it had a royal headdress, but it could just as easily have been one of Nefertiti, her Akhenaten's daughters. And then, of course, we come in all shades. So we can come from light to cocoa brown to caramel to copper to blue black to damn near white. So you can't rule out shades because we are in every shade category. And on the right, as is another picture known to be that of Nefertiti, which is located in the temple. But this image is not shown all over the world, but like the previous one, notice that she has contracted the same kind of sickness that her husband was suffering from, which was supposed to be Frolic syndrome. And we don't really know that for sure because that's what they've given the assertion and the name of what they termed as some kind of deformity. It says, according to some doctors, this was caused a European to swell around the lips and so on. But the problem with this explanation is that Frolic syndrome makes you sterile. And clearly, Akhenaten was anything but sterile since he had 6 daughters. The brother was not sterile. He had a strong seed. And then, of course, we got big lips anyway. So what they told, that's why these women nowadays, Botox and trying to get, they get injections in their lips to make their lips look big. See, they doing all this stuff, getting butt shots and breast shots. And that's why you see all these women, with these huge derrieres and trying to look like black women. Any case, it is evident that the physical features of Nefertiti as seen in her temple and the carving, it shows to be black like Akhenaten's wife, which was found carved into the wall of her tomb. And so they have, of course, features of her. And of course, as you know, they've gone on to create and to steal all these artifacts. Just total plundering. Just thievery. And they were instrumental. They were the wife and husband team who actually instituted monotheism. Okay, and they were by the Kemites. They actually did not agree with this new idea of what he brought in, and so of course there was a lot of consternation when it came to honoring him, and they went about to destroy everything that he had created in terms of going around and destroying his likeness, breaking off his features on walls and so forth and so on, And let me say too, as you already know, you got haters among black folks too. Even in their culture. Believe me, you had some haters, and they got rid of them. But it's not nothing new under the sun. It talks about the Book of the Dead and the Book of the Coming Forth from Darkness into Light, which is the oldest religious literature in the world, is done. It would be very clear to see that it comes from a position of total monotheism. In fact, there is no period in Egyptian history, or I would say Kemetic history, where there was not the one great God who was depicted as having many manifestations and many powers. And so that's why I say, well, this is where people can dismiss that many gods thing. It wasn't that. What Akhenaten actually gave to the world was not the concept of monotheism, but the model of a particular type of monotheism, which was later picked up and viewed as foreign. They viewed it as foreign. Akhenaten had turned that monotheism into a new form of monotheism and chose the sun as its symbol. And that's where you get Ra from. He worshipped Aten, which meant that the old bishops were being put out of power, as there was a group of priests at Luxor called the priests of Amen, the hidden god. And see, this is where a lot of the controversy came in. Who adhered to the older format. Imagine what would happen in the Baptist church, the Methodist church, or the Catholic church if there was suddenly a new religion established that would put all their priests out of power. Yeah, it's about power and control. There was an internal conflict over the conversation by Akhenaten, which was really a move to dominate the country politically. And it is believed that Akhenaten might have been assassinated, as it appears that he met an untimely death because he was seen to be taking the country into a new religious direction. And this is what happens. Today, this knowledge should be of vital importance to black people, since they call themselves monotheists, and black people are, in fact, the most religious people on the face of the earth. So to know the history of the religion that is established is very crucial to understanding that religion. And that is a religion. But it was simulated through spiritual means. And this is why I just want you to know the difference. That religion is a practice of spirituality. Okay? But if you're not interpreting it correctly and you're not adhering to its principles, you're missing it. For example, the idea that the Africans were not monotheists before the Hebrew religion or the Christian religion is completely false, because the Africans were always monotheists. The perception that Africans had no religion until missionaries from Europe and other places arrived to save these uncivilized pagan Africans. Therefore, an eternal debt of gratitude is owed to them is again totally false, and very misleading. This is Miritaten, one of the daughters of Akhenaten and Nefertiti. Okay, and it talks about her hair, and this is, we're talking about getting back to the hair, your crown, and how she was rocking dreads, she was rocking braids. When you see the actual royal wigs like this on the heads of the Cairo Museum, they look as though they originated from those huge afros that were worn in the 1960s, even to the extent that they had peppercorn curls on the wigs. Yeah. And they don't know if they were really wigs. That could have been their hair. You know, because you're talking about people who come from a region where they're in the sun. I don't know where they get that wig stuff from. However, the wigs were very typical and depicted the native African hairstyle. You know? Okay, so, and here's another, it talks about the daughter of Akhenaten and Nefertiti, wherever black mummies are dug up or carvings are discovered with big noses, big lips, and elongated heads. To a European, it may suggest something abnormal, but it is very normal to an African. Instead of admitting that they are African, scholars would offer incredulous explanations, even suggesting that they were deformed Europeans, as was the case with these daughters of Akhenaten. See, no, stop it. Stop that, please. See how they do? Stop it. They were deformed Europeans. See, and I remember growing up. Black women, when the child was born, they would shape the baby's head. They would do something with the head, and they would even do something, push the nose up a little bit or whatever. I don't know why they did it, but they were shaping the baby's head because I think it stimulated brain activity. Okay, and they talked about how that the reason why the elongated heads with the Africans and the Kemites were the way they were was because they came from the stars, and they had such astuteness when it came to their spirituality and their connection to the creation and to the Creator in terms of developing these high societies and civilizations. So no, it wasn't no deformity, European scholars. You can, stop that noise. No, but this had everything to do with their intuition and their prowess with the Creator. So, they're always trying to come up with something that's so, so abstract and, something that's not relevant. So anyways, we're going to stop there for now, and we're going to be coming back and giving you more as we continue this series. Okay, so remember to like and share. Stay with us, and we'll see you guys again. Hit that button and have a great rest of your day and evening. Until next time, this is Seth Moore coming to you again here on Anchor by Spotify. Enjoy. Stay high.